Chapter 10. Case File SIO1. Chapter Hero Profiling. Darawan Restaurant. Paya watched Dr. Shalatorn serve food into Tarn's dish in silence. The care they gave to each other was naturally smooth. The longer he sat there, the more he felt like a third wheel, growing uneasy about joining their conversation. Paya didn't know if it was only in his head, but every time Tarn lifted the gaze to bring him into their conversation, Dr. Shalatorn would voice up to interrupt. That was undoubtedly his intention. Paya could sense it and knew that Dr. Shalatorn was being dissatisfied. Check, please. Yes, but may I go to the restroom for a moment? Be right back. The last sentence Tarn meant to tell Paya before rising from his seat and leaving. Dr. Shalatorn raised his hand to call the waitstaff to calculate the bill. The staff summed up the price, took the money from him, and made their way to the cashier counter. Haya gazed at Dr. Shalatorn contemplatively, hesitating whether he should ask it out if there was any conflict for Dr. Shalatorn to despise him. Is there anything you want to talk to me? Yes. I see you're staring at me. Right. Go for broke. If Doc really loathed him, he wouldn't ask to accompany Tarn again. Did I do anything to upset you? Dr. Shalatorn curved his lips upward. Why did you ask me that? The piercing eyes stared back at Paya. You act strangely as if you dislike me. Dr. Shalatorn took a receipt and the change from the staff and put it in his pocket. He faced up to Paya. I don't have the right to dislike you, I suppose. Excuse me? Please don't worry about my problem. Let's worry about Tarns. The matter that he has to be around the mental illness like you concerns me a bit. Maybe this is the reason I dislike you. Paya's eyebrows twitched, confronting the one before him who smiled at him with gleaming eyes. What do you mean? That Tarn was around the mental illness. I am Tarn's personal psychiatrist. He almost met the criteria for a depression diagnosis because of his father's issue. And being around you, who usually has a strange and elaborate dream, as a doctor, I'm concerned that it quite affects him. His tone deepened menacingly, asking, did he tell you? Tarn had made a promise that he wouldn't tell anyone, but why did he tell Dr. Shalatorn? He's worried about you. He would want you to have a checkup with me, but he wouldn't have the courage to tell you. So he told me instead, if you have some free time, you're welcome to the 12th floor of the hospital. Right after Shalatorn's remark came to an end, the chair suddenly creaked from Paya's bolt upright in full of anger. Paya unblinkingly glared at Dr. Shalatorn's face. It wasn't only his imagination to think that the doctor detested him because Shalatorn genuinely did. The man before him cast a challenging stare with his glimmering eyes, and all Paya could do was clench his fist with a severe face, holding back his fury to not jump over Shalatorn and smash this doctor's face off. I'm fine. No necessity to see you for a checkup. About Tarn, I'll try to stay away from him. Please tell him that I have to run other errands, or please give him a ride back to the department if you have time. If you worried about each other that much, then take care of each other on your own. Paya rotated on his heels toward the car and instantly dashed off. Shalatorn watched Paya drive away and twitched a smile at the corner of his mouth before resuming a neutral face once Tarn returned. Tarn looked for Paya but couldn't find the tall figure, so he asked his close doctor, where did Paya go? Did Paya go to the restroom? But when he walked out, he didn't see Paya at all. He has other errands to run. Other errands to run? Tarn grabbed his phone to call Paya, but Paya didn't pick up. I better take you to the office instead. He said he would run his errands before getting back to work. Tarn nodded in acknowledgement. Deep inside, this issue crossed his heart. Haya went out without telling him and also abandoned him there. That was weird. Let's go. I've already paid. Dr. Shalatorn stood up and touched Tarn's upper arm, signaling Tarn to walk along. All right. Tarn followed Dr. Shalatorn to the car with his hands pressed on his cell phone to call Paya nonstop. What are the damn errands you're running? Why don't you pick up the phone? Shalatorn caught Tarn restless and kept on messing around with his phone. He comforted Tarn with a tender voice. No need to worry. When you get to the office, you can talk to him. Yes, didn't know why, but this made Tarn feel so uneasy. The SI office. Tarn returned to the department. When he entered the office, he expected to see Paya, but there wasn't a trace of him in the slightest. Tarn approached PI, who was talking to Kim, asking, Did you see Paya, bro? You went out together, didn't you? How am I supposed to know? Tarn went silent. It meant that Paya hadn't come back to the office yet. Where the hell was he? Everybody, come check this out. Captain Najima mustered everyone to her desk as she revealed two papers of the suspect's sketch. According to the statement from Miss Mina and Miss Lamoon, the woman Yai brought into the department this morning, both drawings shared mutual features. A male, masked and glassed, wore a beanie and a black long-sleeved shirt. Maybe what they said could be true. Their stories were about being kidnapped along with the victim and forced to torture the victim to death. Lamoon, who was brought back to the department this morning, confessed everything in alarm. Furthermore, her confession aligned with one from Miss Mina. I have asked Mr. Thongtai to check the information, that if there is any viewer who retrieved the criminal profiles from the police website, since those who were allowed to get access to the data required a police department's personal code. Hearing Singh's words, Ajima turned to ask Thongtai, What you've got, Thongtai? I found a forensic scientist. He previously logged in and retrieved this information very often. It showed that Singh's prediction about the situation was accurate. A forensic scientist? Hajima murmured. In which section? Just as Tong Tai's mouth opened to answer the question, an erupting knock at the door drew everyone's attention. They saw Paya standing with a grim look. What is that, Paya? Asked Captain Ajima. Somebody came to confess that she killed the second victim, Captain. Paya answered with a serious expression. He glanced to meet Tarn's eyes, but abruptly averted his gaze back to Ajima. Singh, interrogate the one that Paya has just brought in. The rest, keep on finding the culprit and drafting their profile after what Singh had done under Tongtai's lead. Ajima commanded them with an earnest tone. She took the front steps before Singh and walked out the door. Paya got in their way, saying that he was the one who took the suspect in. Thus, he wanted to observe this interrogation too. Ajima permitted. Fine, in case Singh wants to ask you for more information. Yes. Tarn watched Paya from the rear, holding back his step, about to take flight toward the tall figure before sighing with a heavy heart. Is there anything wrong with Paya? Why did Paya avoid him? Tarn, did you know who Paya brought in? Asked Kim. Tarn swayed his head. With a troubled expression, he walked over to situate himself on a chair opposite Tongtai. Yai plunged into a chair next to him and asked, What's happening? Nothing. Let's get back to work. Tongtai knew his duty, swiftly tapped out to look up for that forensic scientist and presented that record to everyone. This is all the information so far. He looks familiar, said Kim. Yai leaned forward to take a closer look. We met him this morning. How couldn't he look familiar? Yeah, I could remember this dude from the earlier greeting. He shook hands with the guy too. Huh? You're telling me that he's from our department? Hell yeah! Tarn shook off the thought about Paya for now and turned his focus to the information that Thong Tai had found. Introspectively squinted his eyes to look at the man before him. His sister had been raped. Please help him. This man? According to his profile, his sister had been raped. The rapist was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Please help him. This sound again. It kept ringing in his head without stopping. All right, I'll help you, even though I don't know how. But he was an indeed, if he was an indeed predator, I would have no choice but to arrest him under the law enforcement process. And I hereby seek your understanding, okay? Silence. No more sound in his ear. So he would take it as permission. Tarn looked upward at Dong Tai. Please find me his current location and all of his sister's information. PI and I will go look into it. Yay. Tong Tai searched for the information and input it into kind for Yai and Tarn. Interrogation room. Singh and Chid Chan were confronting each other, and no one ever called a truce after Singh had inquired her a question, but she refused to answer. Where did you find her, Paya? At the bus stop, Captain. I saw her behaving strangely, so I pulled over to ask. When she said she was going to see us, I gave her a lift. Paya said with a neutral tone. Both eyes were looking at her demeanor. She had blatantly refused to cooperate with him in the morning. Out of the blue, she changed her mind and told them that she witnessed everything, was kidnapped, and was forced to kill her own father. Her expression was uncaring as she spoke. No sign of regret for what she had done at all. She's hiding something, unlike the other two suspects. Jima believed that Chichan knew something, but she didn't tell them. This woman answered the question in a relaxed manner, as if this didn't bother her at all. She was rather glad when she mentioned the victim. Chid-chan's demeanor was so much different from Mina's and Lamoon's. The other two people were full of fear and guilt. Perhaps she might have some involvement with the criminal. You had a bitter relationship with your father, so when you found a chance to kill him, you didn't hesitate to do it. Singh ruminated. Chid-chan laughed. How did you know that I did not hesitate? If we really didn't, why would I come here to make a confession? Her bloodshot eyes glared at Singh in a fury. Even though I did not appreciate him as a father, just like how he didn't appreciate me as his daughter, I never fantasized about killing him. Never wanted to interact with him by any means. But this was what happened. In the end, he was the one who approached me. Her voice shook at the last sentence. He approached me, even though he knew deep down that I was his daughter. He approached me to rape me. And how could he expect me to feel positive towards this man? Chid-chan boomed with a harsh voice. Her mother hadn't returned home that day, and her father from hell dropped by to borrow her mother's money. When he saw her mother wasn't home, he broke into the house to steal money. She was home at the time, tried to stop him, and she was almost violated by him. He left her with a lifelong stigma. Just looking back to how those rough hands caressed all over her body, she almost couldn't stand the thought that she wanted to slice her skin off to get rid of her self-loathing. Fortunately, someone came in and saved her in time, even though he also kidnapped her and coerced her to torture her father in various ways. But she committed it out of grudges, disappointment, and confusion. However, as time went by, she started to refuse to follow the mysterious man's order because it grew more out of hand each day, and she had enough sense of morality that she began to rebel. But the table had turned. She was the one who was tortured instead, and she could barely survive. She finally succumbed to her famishment, had no other options but to obey that man's command, and persisted in torturing her father until he met his death with these two hands. And when he died, she was washed thoroughly, dressed up, and chloroformed. When she woke up, she found herself in the school. By the way, it was funny to think the day that she went missing, her mother didn't tell anyone, didn't report it to the police, or didn't have any feelings toward the situation. It only emphasized her unimportance to anyone or anything. So, when she walked down the memory that both hands were the ones that shot her father dead, she became more at ease and relieved, telling herself that it was the righteous action to do, and that man was the one who handed her justice. So she came here to express her gratitude. I was hesitant to torture my father at first, but after committing it, I felt like walking on air. Is this, so to speak, that I'm the accomplice? She was previously indecisive about giving testimony to the police due to uncertainty about whether she should protect him. Until she returned home, her mother all raged and beat her restlessly for conversing with the cops, leading to Chid-chan's final decision to save the man by reporting herself as an accomplice. So, she could sense her validation somehow, the validation to return his kindness. Singh fell hushed as he looked at her. He could now understand the purpose of her surrender and why she changed her mind to report it to them. Ajima, who heard every single sentence that Chid-chan confessed, exhaled a long sigh and softly murmured, "Humans' hearts are such labyrinth." The first woman gave herself in because of guilt. The second was due to terror. The third was overwhelmed with feud and fire. These women were used as a tool for the criminal to fulfill his personal void achievements. But in the back of their minds, these girls felt grateful for his help. What did the criminal really want? The joy of saving someone? I'll bring the forensic sketch artist in. I want you to explain the criminal's features to him. Alright, I'm happy to share it. But I want to ask you in return, are there any other people who give themselves in just like me? I'm sure I'm not the first person saved by him. Singh shifted his stare towards Chit-chan. Even so, they wouldn't feel the way you do. Singh snapped with sarcasm. Who knows? At times, even heart owners fail to understand themselves. Whatever you think. Singh cut short the conversation and rotated his feet off the door, letting the other officers take care of her. As soon as Singh emerged from the room, he instantly revealed a fatigued expression. Chid-chan was totally a pitiful woman. It wasn't a surprise that she held such a distorted mind. Water? Kaya handed him a bottle of water. Singh took it and glugged it loud. Take a rest for a moment before getting back to work, said Hajime, but Singh flicked his head in refusal. We're close to completing the profiling. I'll finish it. Hajime patted her brother on the shoulder and told both of them to get back to the office by now. She, on the other hand, would take care of some business with KJ. Mina relocated to work in Bangkok. She was a social worker in a slum quarter and had no relatives in the city. When she was kidnapped and went missing for days, no one noticed the abnormality because before she went missing, she also told her acquaintances that she would return home up-country. For Lamoon, the youngest of all, was a ghetto girl who lived with her aunt. Her neighbor didn't care if someone went missing around the area, especially a blooming girl like her who would leave the town to find a job and only return once in a blue moon. Moreover, her aunt thought she had left home for work, so she didn't question her missing. Chid-chan, on the other hand, lived with her mother, who never cared if she lived or died, so no one reported during the time of her disappearance. The criminal chose the victims who were alone and easy targets. He was supposedly a clever, patient, and deliberate man to the utmost. Dong Thai keyed in to update the information that Tarn and Yai had sent him after asking them to periodically report what they had found. According to Tarn's report, the suspect's sister experienced PTSD after being assaulted. The doctor advised her to recuperate in the hospital, but his brother asked to take care for her at home. A year later, she committed suicide. PTSD means post-traumatic stress disorder. It is a mental health condition caused by experiencing a traumatic event. Tarn and Yai walked to the suspect's house, but when they arrived, nobody was there. So they asked his neighbor and were told that he barely came home only once in a while. Perhaps he had another hiding place. Furthermore, his neighbor reported some odd details that a few months earlier he often came home at night and hardly left home during the day. Tarn and Yai further assumed that he might try to conceal that he confined someone at home and might distrust to leave the victims alone in the daytime due to the fear that the neighbor would find out. This was possibly where he kept the victim captivated and tortured as it was suburbia where each house was situated far from one another. In addition, there would be a basement like what Mina and Lamoon stated. This might be the reason their neighbor couldn't hear their cry for help. After finding enough evidence, Tarn and Yai were called back into the department to listen to the felon's summary from all the clues they could gather. Singh concluded, the suspect has the deliberate, delicate professionalism and forensic scientific expertise. He has a complex toward sexual offense cases due to his sister and harbors a feud in his mind. These traits may break out after his sister's death. The chosen victims might be those who had watched and followed for a long time, added Dong Tai. Since the suspect worked as a forensic scientist, he might have several police officer friends and forensic scientists from other divisions. He might have heard the news from them. I have traced this down from his internet usage. Ajima narrowed her eyes, looking at Dong Tai. Did he have the permission to do that? Dong Tai's answer held its tongue, causing everybody else to exchange their gaze in anxiety. This was indeed against the law. Just one time, for this case. I'll make sure no one can find out, Dong Tai confirmed. Whether they found out or not, you shouldn't do it. You're a law enforcement officer, Dong Tai. You can't act recklessly like this. What laws are for then? Yes, ma'am. Hajima heaved out a sigh before leaning on the backrest and kept going. I've asked KJ. He said this forensic scientist took sick leave in the afternoon because he needed to look after his sick family member. Is this a chance for him to run away? Asked Cam. He won't, Singh affirmed, because he didn't take revenge on his last one yet. Thong Tai spoke out after searching for information about the rapist involved in his sister's sexual assault. The last victim, Song Yos, his sister's sexual offender, received a pardon reducing his prison sentence from 10 years to 6 years. It means that the former victims were just his rehearsal? Singh turned to answer Paya. Possibly, but deep inside, he would want to fulfill his wishful thinking of rescuing his sister. So, his sister is his complex, said Tarn. Therefore, that voice in his head was, phew. Tarn lifted his hand to stroke behind his neck. He sensed this icy cold feeling once again. It means that Song Yos is his real target. Where is he now? Ajima asked Thong Tai. The long-haired typing machine swiftly backed out on the keyboard, clicked on the mouse, and lifted his face upward a few seconds later. His location is unknown, but besides his house in the suburbs, he has an apartment in the B area. Song Yos is now working at the D garage. Divide into teams. Follow the former team divisions. Yaya and Kem, you go find Sang Yos at the garage. Tarn and Paya, go to apartment B. And the rest stands by here. Copy. Operation Arrest Target officially commenced. Everyone changed their attire to bulletproof vests over white shirts, sleeves rolled up to their elbows, ready for prompt action. Inside the car interior, Tarn was tense in a straightened position as he stole his glance at his chauffeur. That handsome face was severe and cold. It made the one on the passenger side feel so uptight that he slipped out a question. Maya, what's the matter with you? What makes you mad at me? You can tell me. He noticed that Paya didn't look at him all the way through the meeting time, not to mention his intention to ignore him. No answer to his inquiry. Paya kept on driving. The man didn't even take a glimpse at him at all. Literally not at all. If I upset you or anything, I'm sorry. Paya, what made you piss off? Please tell me. Still stay quiet. Tarn started to feel annoyed that the other person didn't answer his question. Instead, Paya kept putting on a stern face, exuding a "get away from me" aura to him tirelessly. Tarn inhaled deeply and managed to suppress his agitation. He was on duty at this moment. If he lost it onto Paya by now, he could bet for a catastrophe ahead. Better grill Paya for the answer later. Apartment B. Tarn couldn't believe his eyes to see Paya vaulted from the car right after cutting off the engine without waiting for him. Next, stuck up straight and advancing to the apartment security without even caring to call him at all. Fine, then do it on your own, Tarn thought. Once Tarn plunged out of the car, he crossed his arms, leaning on their vehicle and wagging his feet to await his homie. When Paya was done questioning the apartment security, the tall guy just walked right through him and suddenly entered the apartment. Damn you, whatever. He needed to follow Paya anyway as they worked together. Thought and sighed. Tarn quickened his pace to catch up with Paya's speed. They both took a staircase onto the third floor of the apartment. Paya led Tarn to a room and knocked on the door a few times, but no one came to open it up. The two traded their gaze. Paya lowered his voice. The security said that someone had returned to this room. The first sentence from Paya this afternoon. It relieved Tarn a bit as he thought Paya wouldn't talk to him again. But this wasn't the time to be glad about this. They needed to think of what to do next. Tarn peeped the window shutter through the screen and braces. He looked closely for so long but couldn't see anything moving inside the room. Then his sight stumbled upon the empty hasp with no lock. It meant the door was locked from the inside. Help him! Is he inside the room? Tarn asked, but the voice didn't respond. Noticing from the door edge, Tarn found that it was a push door. So, break in. Break in? Yep, we have no search warrant. Ask for it later. Seeing Paya was reluctant, afraid of the action, Tarn nudged Paya to stay back and lifted his foot, ready to kick the door. But no sooner had his foot landed on it than the other door suddenly opened. You! The man who opened the door was one that Tarn clasped his hand in the morning. The forensic scientist, Mr. Vitt. What is he doing here? You're the police officer I met this morning, aren't you? You work for DSI? Paya narrowed his eyes, asking. But even before the room owner could answer Paya, Tarn pushed the door and got in, swept across the room searching for a trace of Narong, the suspect in the brutal murder of the rapist cases. However, Tarn couldn't find him. He carried on surveying the bedroom, bathroom, and bedroom corridor, but still couldn't find anyone. Haya, on the other hand, also explored the room before tripping on someone's foot behind the door. He aimed his gun toward the door direction. Under the circumstances, Vit jumped over Paya to steal the firearm from Paya's hand. Vit shouted to the one behind the door, "Go!" A man in a black costume popped from his hiding spot out of the room. Tarn, who was inspecting the corridor, witnessed the situation inside the room and could glimpse Narong's from the rear view. Tarn blazed off, chasing after the man. "Freeze! Freeze now!" Tarn shouted while running down the stairs after Narong's back. But the other person ran so fast that even Tarn, who had running exercise every day, couldn't catch up with him. Tarn raised his gun, aiming, but it was considered too risky as this was the city area. He took a deep breath, put his gun back into the holster on his waist, and kept running to get Narong. "Freeze!" Tarn shouted from the back, but there was no sign of Narong to ease off his speed. Plus, he zigzagged through the narrow alley between buildings. "Right, you won't stop, will you?" "Fine." Tarn bolted to follow Narong to his best ability. He had undergone intense physical training especially for this job. He could run 1,000 miles. If he dreamed of running away from someone like me, over my dead body, you bastard. Tarn sprinted even faster, reached for that man's collar, and threw him to the wall until that body thudded the sound and collapsed on the floor. Tarn used this opportunity to lift his gun and aim it at him. "Don't move!" Tarn ordered under a heavy breath. He was dripping sweat all over his face and back, just like Narong, was panting heavily on the floor. The man faced up to Tarn and burst out laughing. "They say that they will form a special unit, the best one, who can put the tough guys in jail the most. What's the use? When at the end of the day, they would be released away. Anyway." Nerong's gloomy eyes cast a look on Tarn with a cynical smile. Unwaveringly staring Narong in the eyes, Tarn panted as he aimed his gun in Narong's direction so as not to lose sight of him. He swallowed his sticky saliva down his throat and didn't argue. Instead, Tarn used the other empty hand to press on the earpiece, telling Paya that he had already got Narong under arrest. Shortly, the tall figure rushed toward him, put Narong in the cuff, and then forced Narong to stand up with Tarn observing closely. Tarn said to Narong despite his own heavy breath, "If you have anything to vent, vent it in the interrogation room. Just pour yourself out to sing." And he would cross his arms, wag his feet, and wait outside. DSI office. Yai and Cam had returned to the department earlier than Paya and Tarn. Once they arrived, they reported to Ajima that they couldn't find Songyos at the garage. When they asked his acquaintances, they were told that nobody had seen him for a week already. In the meantime, Tarn and Paya called for backup to help them bring Narong back to the department. Then Singh, Tongtai, and Ajima took charge of interrogating Narong and Vit and let Paya and Tarn rest in the office. Tarn cast a wary look while Paya glided with ease to the office. "What's wrong? You look tired. What have you done?" asked Cam. "Chasing the bad guy," said Tarn in an inert tone, collapsing himself onto the chair and glugging water. "I don't see Paya look tired in the least bit." "Because he didn't run." Paya arrested Vit upstairs, and until Paya could back him up, he had chased after Narong far already. "Right, Paya?" Looking at the man sitting with a dead face at the table, Paya showed no responsive sign. Cam couldn't help but laugh. Tarn saw Paya held still and didn't look his way at all. So he was the one who dragged his chair to approach him. "Paya, are you still mad at me? What is it about?" Tarn asked softly, afraid that the other two in the room would overhear it. Paya didn't answer, but told Yai and Kem that he would meet the captain. Tarn saw Paya walk right through him without saying a word. He followed and grabbed Paya by that strong arm. Answer me first! Thump. Paya whipped off and pushed Tarn away before glaring frigidly at him. Tarn startled, looking at Paya in astound. Never thought Paya would do that to him. Yaya and Kem witnessed it all. They hastily advanced the two. Yaya harshly asked Paya, "The heck is going on here?" "Go ask your bro." Paya answered Yaya with a dark, severe tone before giving Tarn a freezing cold stare. "If you can't keep a promise, then don't give a promise." Finished his sentence, Paya rotated his heels off the door. Tarn was lost in confusion and didn't understand what Paya had just said, but Paya's penetrating look caused him to catch his breath and feel the sharp cut to the heart for unknown reasons. But soon after, those feelings were transformed into anger that Paya didn't even let him acknowledge his guilt, because he was confident that he never did Paya wrong. "Paya!" Yai shouted out Paya's name, but he was restrained by Tarn. "Don't!" Cam watched Tarn in Paya's demeanor and couldn't believe what he had just seen, that the two bodies would have such an intense hardship like this. He had never imagined this scenario in mind before. "What's wrong between the both of you? I've never seen you two fight each other before at all." Despite hard teasing to one another that they went sulky and turned sour sometimes, it never had gone this far. Tarn didn't answer Cam's question, as he was also stumped about where to find the answer. His guess was as good as his friend, as he didn't even realize his guilt. Why was Paya mad like that? He couldn't keep his promise? What promise? End of chapter 10.